PK in the universe, and I am back again with another video. And today I want to talk about how I kind of lost the plot with Evercade. I really did, honestly. And there's a combination of reasons where that I went from over here to over here, and now I'm kind of, I don't know. I don't know what you call this, but I wanted to discuss my thoughts and feelings on Evercade again. And it has been a while since I've done that. And the last one, it's weird because, there was the one video and then there was the follow-up video. And you can tell a lot of people didn't watch the follow-up video anyways, but it just kind of made up their mind about me in regards to the whole topic of Evercade. And it is what it is, but I wanted to discuss, why I've been kind of interested more in Evercade recently. There's a combination of reasons, just some realizations and coming to terms with different things about the systems themselves and the games and the community that surrounds it. Lately, I've been seeing some pretty good Evercade videos out there on YouTube. Cyrus Martin has recently been, uploading some Evercade content, and he got it pretty recently, and it's been really cool to see him experience Evercade for the first time. It reminded me of what I felt when I first discovered Evercade, actually. And it's been neat to see him play these games. He got Pico Interactive 1, and of course he's got the two pack-in games, which actually came with the old school Evercade VS, not to be confused with the VSR. The VSR does look really cool. I really like that there's a black Evercade VS, that isn't the Founders Edition one. Yeah, sometimes I think maybe I should get one of those, and I don't know. But I don't think I will at the moment because I'm trying to not spend money, and I have a really big purchase I have to make gaming-wise, and that's a video for another day that I agreed to do months and months ago before I made that Burning Up Your Backlog video. But we'll get to that in another video, but I'm getting a little off track here. So the thing about the Evercade VS, what I love about the VS so much is that it looks kind of like an NES. You plug actual cartridges in, and the fact that it has dual cartridges has always been kind of a neat feature. It reminds me of the NES. It's a very nostalgic kind of thing, and Blaze knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. They could have made this a top-loading thing, but they chose to make it a front-loading thing, because it's reminiscent of the NES, and I really like that aspect of it. But, yeah. So, one thing I've been playing lately, I've been playing Indie Heroes 1 here. I don't have that upside down here. Yeah, and, right here. And it's just so neat. I forgot about how cool it is that, you got this here, you got a manual, and this one even came with stickers, which is pretty neat. This is actually the second copy of Indie Heroes I have, or whatever. I gave the other one to my buddy Nick. And what can I say about Evercade? I've been playing Foxyland quite a bit, actually, lately. And I was playing it on the train the other day. And I was having an absolute blast, playing this, it's a Sega Genesis game, but it's in the palm of your hand. We take for granted that sort of thing. There was a time the only people who were playing Sega Genesis games on the go were people who had the money to get a Nomad. We take for granted these kind of things. And I was thinking how much I took for granted some of these kind of things, The thing about my purple Evercade, this is an Evercade I have not hacked with EverSD software. It's the one I have kept absolutely pure and honest. So when I take this on the go with me, I can't use an EverSD. No, I have to use the physical cartridge. And I forgot, this is one of the great charms of Evercade, is you use physical cartridges. You don't have like every single ROM loaded up to your heart's content and desire, which is something I always knew, obviously, but for some reason, it's just hitting differently nowadays, and I realized how much I missed just the, arbitrary thing of putting a cartridge in a system, and not having too much selection and having so much, because sometimes having so much overwhelming choice absolutely does, rattle your brain to the point you end up picking nothing, and you have, game picking paralysis, where you basically just look at games forever and ever, try them for 5 seconds, and end up playing nothing. When you're limited to how much choice you have, it is really actually a good thing because it actually forces you to play the game and experience it no matter how you want to experience that. There is something really great about just, having your Evercade, having the cartridge, and you just put it in and it just works. And I know some cartridges require updates or need updates, or an update is more ideal if it has been updated, but still, the majority of the games work. And that's something maybe I didn't focus on nearly enough when I have been critical of Evercade. I talk about maybe too much of the bad and not enough of the good, and maybe too much of the good, not enough of the bad. It's hard to be balanced sometimes. It really is. One of the more recent updates with Evercade 2 in regards to the VS is apparently now there's mouse support for those broken sword games I was giving them a hard time about. And I'm glad. I'm glad everybody who wanted the, 32-bit broken sword 1 and 2 games now has mouse support, I guess. And I don't know if this is just an early beta or what. I don't have that collection. I actually have both those games on GOG, the remastered versions. So if I ever wanted to play them, I could play them on my PC that I'm sitting at right now. So I don't see myself wanting to play those games on the go. And yeah, sure, you could just use a controller. That was true because a lot of people, obviously played that with a PS1 controller. But obviously, this is a game that was designed with a mouse in mind. So I think a lot of people would prefer to play that way. So I think it's great that Blaze is finally giving people that option. I think that's important. I'm glad I spoke up and said something. I don't know that my voice mattered in the grand scheme of things. I'm sure a lot of people said they wanted mouse support, and Blaze delivered, and they deserve props for that. It was a complaint that a lot of people had, and sure, that complaint often gets dismissed by people who think Blaze can do no wrong and Blaze should never be complained to. But at the end of the day, people, had a valid complaint there, is because that's how the game was designed to be played, or was meant to be played, though you can play it with a controller, obviously. But if you don't have to play with a controller, wouldn't it be better to be able to play with a mouse? I think it's a win. It's a huge win for the consumers, and I'm glad I spoke up about that, though, again, I don't think my voice really mattered in the grand scheme of things. I'm sure it's an entire crowd of people who were saying the same thing, and Blaze listened. They listened to that feedback, and that's great, and I love it. Another thing, too, that Blaze recently did was now you can play the Namco collections on your Evercade VS. Before you could not. These were the only 2 cartridges because of the licensing issue with Namco, is you could not play those 2 games. They would only work on the portable and the arcade. Yes, their tabletop arcade, the Evercade Alpha would work, but it wouldn't work with the VS because it goes on a TV, which makes no sense to me because you can actually hook one of these up to a frickin' TV. So I don't get it. I never understood that, but that was the rule, I guess, when they first did the licensing. So Blaze decided to do a stealth update, and people figured it out. I don't know how people figured it out, but they did, and that's awesome. That really makes me happy that they're doing that because it always was such a strange deal that only 2 games. It actually makes me regret selling Namco 2 now, actually. I did not sell Namco 1. I still own that. That's still in my collection because it's the pack-in to my other OG Evercade. So I always keep the games that go with the system that they were packed in with. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe if I had known they were going to do that, maybe I wouldn't have sold Namco 2 now. But you know what? It is what it is. And I think the reason I sold a lot of my games were a number of reasons. For financial reasons, obviously. If you have games in your collection and you're not playing them, it seems silly to keep them. The other elephant in the room is this thing right here. Yeah. I've come to realize something profound. Is it profound? Is that the right word? I don't know. I've come to realize that this thing kind of killed my joy for Evercade. I didn't realize it either. I didn't realize it at the moment. Do I regret buying it? No. But I regret how I used it, honestly. Because this thing has one majorly important function, and that is to back up your cartridges. To back up your cartridges. I think that is the back up the games that you legally purchased. I think that's what this thing should be used for. and that's what it's worth using for. Or to maybe even play games that you would like to see. Hey, would this game work on Evercade? Is it possible? This thing will tell you those things. What it should not be used for is a multi-cart. Because at the end of the day, that's what these things are. They're multi-carts. So all you're doing really is giving yourself so much more choice than you actually need. You don't need every single Evercade cartridge on here. I used to say that that's why I got this, is so I wouldn't have to bring all my cartridges everywhere. Well, the problem is I gave myself, game playing paralysis where I end up playing nothing and just playing a few games for 5 minutes. What I ultimately did is I turned my Evercade into one of these, which I never play this thing hardly unless there's a game I really specifically want to play on the go. That's all I did. I turned it basically into a cheap Chinese handheld. That's what I did to my Evercade. And I realized, wow, I didn't need to do that. I have the cartridges I have. I have the games I really want. There's no need to have them all in one single place. Because at the end of the day, that's what the games on Evercade are. They're multi-carts with a bunch of games in them that give you a limited selection, so you're not stuck in a situation where it's constant paralysis of wanting to figure out what game am I going to play. We live in a world that's just filled with overwhelming choice. And yeah, so I kind of lost the plot with Evercade, whether I knew it or not. And I also realized too that I let certain people in the community sour me on Evercade. People in a certain social media app kind of really soured me on Evercade. People who kind of think they know everything. The kind of guy who, will just, hate on every Evercade YouTuber. We're all just terrible people to him. He would say things like, well, the problem is, the Evercade YouTubers don't interact on this particular social media app. They don't want to really be part of a community. That's his opinion. But then he would never comment on any of my videos. There's other people on this particular social media app who would comment, though. And I realized people like him, kind of soured me on Evercade. And I didn't really realize it until later, and these people with these prickly personalities, I realized that's the problem with community sometimes, is community, everybody has very strong opinions about certain things. And you're not allowed to engage in wrongthink with some people, or they'll talk trash about you. And then you're just like, well, I don't want to deal with this. It's just, these are my opinions. And I'll be honest, I look back on that other one. I should have kept my mouth shut about SNK though. Oh my gosh. There were so many people who came up to me like trying to be like, well, you're wrong about, and it's like, I told you you're allowed to have your opinion. Okay. I told you I don't have any issue with anybody who chooses to buy the SNK stuff, related stuff from Evercade, from Blaze. And I did make a joke too. I remember thinking we're never going to get an SNK cart, and there is going to be an SNK cart, and that's awesome. And I think it's a good value for what it is. It's like the equivalent, it's like 6 games. That's like $5 a game or something like that. That's a good deal. That actually is a good deal. It's about what it goes for everywhere else. It's, at the end of the day, it's about, being able to play SNK games on Evercade or the Hyper Mega Tech Super Pocket or whatever, however you want to play those games. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Yeah, you can get those games anywhere, but a lot of people want to play them on Evercade, so they're coming to Evercade. Makes perfect sense, actually, when I think about it that way. So, yeah, I wish I'd kept my mouth shut about the SNK stuff, because, yeah, I expressed my opinion, right or wrong, whether you agree with it or not. But I think about how the people just took that so weirdly personally, I even told them, I'm like, you're not a bad person for buying stuff from SNK, but I choose not to partake because I don't like what they do. Oh man, and somebody got all crazy on me. It was like, their argument was, well, so what if 90% of the company is owned by Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia also owns 8% of Nintendo. I'm like, yeah, because 8% and 98% are totally the same thing. Right. First of all, I didn't actually know that at the time too, but I also didn't, you know what? I also don't have very good opinions of Nintendo right now either. That's another thing that I have to say in regards to the Evercade cartridges. Yeah, it's frustrating that these cartridges, that they're going up in price, considering the quality of these cartridges. But then I think about what Nintendo's doing with Nintendo Switch 2 with these key card nonsense and how they're going to have an $80 Mario Kart game. It's like, wow, this is looking kind of appealing now, right now, compared to Switch 2. Yes, these games, a lot of them are emulation, though there are some native ports and stuff like that. This looks kind of appealing compared to Switch 2. Would I recommend people buy Evercade over Switch 2? Yeah, actually, if you're into retro video games, go with Evercade over Switch 2. Hell yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy how things change. You know, that announcement with the Switch 2 and everything definitely changed my perspective. So I have evolved past the point of where I was when I made the last few Evercade videos, because new information has come into the stratosphere, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that changes my perspective on that completely. So I feel like at the end of the day, I'd kind of lost the plot on Evercade. Like, yeah, EverSD, it's a cool little device, but this should not be your primary way of playing Evercade cartridges. You are not really preserving your Evercade cartridges by not playing them, because they have the life they have, regardless. The whole point of Evercade is not just affordable collecting. And that was one of the arguments I think I had, is Evercade was no longer about affordable collecting. And maybe it never was. Maybe it never was all along. But Evercade is still about actually affordable gaming, because this cartridge is still affordable and it has games on it that you can play and enjoy. These systems are not that expensive, honestly. I mean, this one probably is very expensive. It's a purple Evercade. They only made like 1,000 of these. But, you know, the VSR and the EXPR are not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. So those would be great options if they're available, because, you know, obviously there's been some shortage issues here and there. Maybe when you're watching this, there won't be shortage issues. Maybe there isn't right now, and I'm just thinking about the last couple of months or whatever. But it's also been kind of disappointing. I used to be able to get Evercade cartridges at Video Games Plus Canada. That used to be like the go-to place I would recommend people. And every time I go to their site now, there's nothing there. There's just barely any Evercade stuff. And you can tell they just aren't getting supply. And maybe they won't get supply ever again. I don't know. I don't know what the future is. It's crazy, interesting times that we're living in. Obviously, Funstock is the go-to place. I heard prices might increase because people aren't sure about what to do about the tariffs and stuff like that, which I don't want to get into that crap. I really don't care about the tariffs. It is what it is. This is not a political channel or an economics channel. So, but it's frustrating to say the least, because Amazon's really the only place you can get Evercade cartridges here in the States. And a lot of the times the people selling them are third-party resellers, so that's very frustrating. And a lot of times if you want to get a cartridge when it comes out and not have to pay over retail, you have to pre-order it. And I guess there's ways you can preview those games if they are games that have already existed other places. But it's a big ask sometimes for some people to just, you know, take a gamble, spend $25, $30 on games you don't know if you're going to like them or not, if there's no other way to play them, that is. Which, you know, obviously a lot of these games, if they're indie games, you can find them on itch.io or something like that. But then there's like that Metal Dragon and Life on Mars collection. The only way you could get those was on a cartridge, at least when I got them anyhow. So that was kind of my only option. And I'm glad I got that cartridge. It's a good cartridge. Absolutely worth having, no doubt about it. But yeah, overall, I would say my Evercade journey has evolved, and I'm starting to find some joy in Evercade again, and I'm really happy that that's happening for me. But anyways, I just want to give people my quick thoughts on Evercade. I hadn't made an Evercade video in a while, and it's great to finally have some good things to say. And anyways, got to get back to gaming. I'll see y'all later. Stay awesome in this universe. Bye.